Have you ever felt like your struggles are meant to teach you something bigger? Maybe you've wondered if God is testing you, trying to grow your faith or refine your character through the tough times. Today, we're going to dive into this concept and explore the idea that suffering can be a divine test. Over the next few minutes, we'll be discussing 7 key points that will help us understand this complex and often misunderstood topic. Suffering is a universal human experience, and yet, it's something we often try to avoid or escape. But what if I told you that suffering can be a blessing in disguise? That it can lead to growth, transformation, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our faith? That's what we're going to explore today. Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge that suffering is hard. It's painful, and it's real. And I'm not here to diminish that reality or make light of the struggles you may be facing. But I do want to offer a perspective that can help you make sense of it all and find hope in the midst of hardship. So, let's get started. The first point we're going to discuss is the biblical perspective on suffering. The Bible has a lot to say about suffering, and one of the most well-known passages is in James 1 verse 2-4, which says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness." This passage suggests that God uses trials and sufferings to test our faith, to refine it, and to make it more steadfast. In Hebrews 12 verse 5-11, we're reminded that God disciplines us for our good, that we may share His holiness. This discipline is not punishment, but rather a means of perfecting our character and conforming us to the image of Christ. The biblical perspective on suffering is clear. It's not just a random event, but rather an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to prove our faith and to deepen our relationship with God. The biblical authors didn't shy away from discussing suffering. In fact, they often wrote about it as a means of spiritual growth. In the next section, we're going to explore how suffering can lead to character development and how challenges can shape us into the people we're meant to be. One of the most significant ways suffering can impact our lives is through character development. When we face challenges and struggles, we're forced to confront our weaknesses and limitations, and it's in those moments that we can choose to let our character be shaped by the experience. Through suffering, we can develop qualities like resilience, perseverance, and compassion. We can learn to empathize with others who are struggling, and we can develop a deeper appreciation for the beauty and fragility of life. The Apostle Paul wrote in Romans 5 verse 3-5, "Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." Suffering is not just about getting through the hard times. It's about who we become as a result of those experiences. When we choose to face our struggles head-on, we open ourselves up to the possibility of transformation. And it's this transformation that can lead to a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in our lives. In the next section, we're going to examine the role of community support during suffering and how shared experiences can strengthen our faith. One of the most critical aspects of suffering is the role of community. When we're going through a tough time, it's easy to feel isolated and alone. But the truth is, we're not meant to face our struggles solo. The Bible encourages us to bear one another's burdens, to weep with those who weep, and to comfort those who are struggling. When we share our experiences with others, we can find strength, encouragement, and support. In the book of Acts, we see the early Christian community coming together to support one another, sharing their resources, and caring for each other's needs. This sense of community is essential to our spiritual growth and development. Community support can take many forms, from prayer and encouragement to practical help and tangible support. And when we're part of a community that cares for one another, we can face our struggles with greater confidence and hope. In the next section, we're going to analyze the concept of free will and its connection to suffering, explaining how our choices can lead to difficult situations. The concept of free will is complex, and it's closely tied to the idea of suffering. When we make choices, we open ourselves up to the possibility of consequences, both good and bad. And sometimes, those consequences can lead to suffering. The Bible teaches that God gives us the freedom to choose, and with that freedom comes the responsibility to make wise decisions. But even when we make mistakes, God can use those mistakes to shape us and grow us. In Psalm 119, verse 67, King David writes, "Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word." David's suffering led him to reevaluate his life and to turn back to God. Our choices can have far-reaching consequences, and it's essential to recognize that suffering can be a direct result of our decisions. But even in those moments, God can use our suffering to teach us valuable lessons and to draw us closer to Himself. In the next section, we're going to investigate testimonies of individuals who found meaning and purpose through their suffering, showcasing real-life examples. One of the most powerful ways to find meaning in our suffering is to hear the stories of others who have walked a similar path. When we hear about people who have found purpose and hope in the midst of hardship, it inspires us to do the same. I want to share a story with you about a woman named Corrie ten Boom, who survived the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. Despite the unimaginable suffering she endured, Corrie chose to forgive her captors and to share the love of Christ with others. Corrie's story is a testament to the power of faith in the face of suffering, and it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, God is always at work. In the next section, we're going to delve into the psychological aspects of suffering and how it can lead to resilience and a deeper understanding of life. Suffering has a profound impact on our psychology, and it can shape the way we think, feel, and behave. When we face challenges, our brain is forced to adapt, and this adaptation can lead to greater resilience and emotional intelligence. Research has shown that people who have experienced trauma and suffering often develop a greater sense of gratitude, empathy, and compassion. They develop a deeper appreciation for life and a more realistic understanding of the world. In the book of Job, we see a man who suffered unimaginable loss and pain, and yet, he emerges from that experience with a deeper understanding of God and a greater sense of wisdom. Through suffering, we can develop a greater sense of purpose and meaning, and we can learn to find joy in the midst of hardship. In the next section, we're going to conclude with a discussion on the importance of maintaining hope and faith during trials, reinforcing the idea of a greater purpose. One of the most critical aspects of suffering is our response to it. When we face hardship, we can choose to give up, or we can choose to hold on to hope, and it's this hope that sustains us, even in the darkest of times. The Bible encourages us to fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before Him endured the cross. When we focus on Jesus, we're reminded that our suffering is not in vain, and that it has a greater purpose. In 1 Peter 1, verse 6-7, we're told that our suffering is refining our faith, making it more precious than gold, and that it will ultimately lead to praise, glory, and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Our suffering is not just about us, it's about the greater story of redemption and salvation that God is telling. In the final section, we're going to summarize the key takeaways from our discussion about suffering and its potential role as a test of faith. Today, we've covered a lot of ground, and I hope that you've gained a deeper understanding of the role suffering can play in our lives. We've seen how suffering can be a divine test, how it can lead to character development, and how it can shape us into the people we're meant to be. We've explored the importance of community support, the role of free will, and the psychological aspects of suffering. And we've seen how suffering can lead to resilience, hope, and a deeper understanding of life. Ultimately, suffering is not just about getting through the hard times, it's about who we become as a result of those experiences. And it's my hope that today, you've found encouragement and inspiration to persevere, even in the midst of hardship. Finally, I want to encourage you to share your personal experiences related to suffering. And I invite you to check out another related videos on my channel on playlists. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
I appreciate you taking the time to watch and be here. If this video resonated with you or touched your heart, please consider supporting the channel by buying me a coffee. Simply scan the QR code or click the link in the description below. Your generosity keeps this mission alive. See you soon. God bless. If you're looking to overcome depression and anxiety by strengthening your spirituality, I invite you to check out my ebook, Soulful Transformations, Bridging Faith and Mind for Lasting Wellness, available on Kindle. This book combines cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, with biblical wisdom to help you manage stress, tackle anxiety, and find lasting peace through faith. It's not just about mental health. It's about deepening your relationship with God and transforming your life in ways that inspire others. Check the description below for the link and take the first step toward a life of spiritual and emotional wellness.